Marcus Vale stepped into the chamber, the metallic floor humming faintly beneath his boots, and immediately wished he'd asked for a stronger cup of synth coffee before leaving the brig. The room smelled faintly of ozone and disinfectant, and the lights above flickered with a rhythm that reminded him of an old human heartbeat monitor, except slower and, somehow, ominously judgmental. He tried to straighten his uniform, which had seen better days, though he suspected it would have been more productive to straighten his nerves instead. Across the room, seated on a raised platform of polished obsidian and softly glowing runes, was the queen, Selari. Her pale skin caught the light in a way that almost made it look liquid, her long ears curving gracefully above her head like twin antennas tuned to some distant frequency only she could hear. Bioluminescent patterns rippled faintly along her neck and temples, pulsing with each flicker of thought or emotion, and Marcus wondered if they were a subtle display of mood or an involuntary reflex to his presence. He swallowed, reminding himself that he was a soldier trained for the impossible, not a tourist gawking at alien royalty. "So," he said, trying for a casual tone he didn't quite feel, "do you do this interrogation thing often, or is today my lucky day?" The words came out shakier than intended, and he quickly added, "I mean, I don't mind. It's exciting, in a very mild heart attack kind of way." Selari's eyes narrowed slightly, though the corners lifted almost imperceptibly. "Your humor is unusual," she said, her voice lilting in a way that suggested amusement hidden beneath formal cadence. "It is rare for humans to make jokes in the presence of the Andrali's throne." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Well, I like to think it keeps morale high. If nothing else, it might keep you entertained while you decide whether to vaporize me or just send me home with a strongly worded warning." Selari's lips twitched, almost a smile, and the bioluminescent patterns along her ears flared briefly, a subtle signal of her shifting interest. Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Small victories. The interrogation began in earnest. Selari asked about the skirmish on Oris 7, the human fleet's tactical decisions, and whether Marcus had encountered any advanced cloaking technology during the last raid. Marcus answered carefully, providing only what was necessary and peppering his responses with small jokes that kept the mood lighter than expected. "Well," he said at one point, "if your ships are this shiny, it must be hard to sneak around. You've got enough chrome to make a disco ball jealous." Selari blinked, and Marcus thought he saw a faint flash of amusement pass across her eyes. As the questioning continued, Marcus began to notice subtle changes in her demeanor. She was precise, deliberate, and intimidating in every movement, yet her attention occasionally wandered to trivial details. A stray tool on the floor, a misaligned holographic display, a panel blinking slightly out of rhythm. At one point, he accidentally kicked a loose floor panel, sending a small, whirring drone spiraling across the room. Marcus saluted it with mock seriousness. "Sir, this drone requests asylum," he said. Selari's shoulders relaxed, just enough for him to notice, and the drone zipped back into its docking station. Marcus started piecing together fragments of memory. Years ago, on a remote mining colony in the Proxima sector, he had saved a disguised Andrali's diplomat from sabotage, never realizing that the woman behind the mask had been Selari herself. Now, as she questioned him with those sharp, curious eyes, a gnawing sense of déjà vu made his throat tighten. He wondered if she remembered, but dared not guess. "Your laughter, it is peculiar," Selari said suddenly, her voice echoing slightly in the metallic chamber. "Humans are usually less resilient when confronted with potential annihilation." Marcus shrugged, forcing a grin. "Resilience is just a fancy word for stubbornness and maybe ignorance. Works for me either way." A pause followed. Then Selari leaned forward slightly, the light along her neck pulsing brighter, almost like a heartbeat syncing with hers. Marcus noticed that the patterns along her skin seemed to react subtly to his presence, almost as if the bioluminescence itself were reading his intentions. He wondered if all Andralis felt this way, or if it was unique to her. "Tell me," she said, voice calm, almost conversational now, "when you were on Oris 7, did you ever pause?" Marcus tilted his head. "Pause? You mean like coffee breaks, meditation, existential dread?" He smiled wryly. "Sure, all of the above, but mostly the last one. War has a funny way of forcing philosophical contemplation." Selari's patterns flickered. "I sense something familiar in your choices, Lieutenant Vale," Something humane. Marcus' pulse quickened. Humane, huh? Well, I do my best. My resume says trained soldier. But apparently my secret talent is keeping aliens mildly entertained during interrogations. Her long ears twitched at that, and for a moment Marcus imagined her leaning closer. Curiosity piqued, studying him as if trying to confirm a memory from long ago. The tension in the room shifted slightly, softening like the slow hiss of an airlock vent. Humor, he realized, had become a weapon as sharp as any rifle in his kit. Minutes stretched into hours, and the dialogue bounced between pointed questions about military maneuvers and absurd hypotheticals. Marcus speculating on whether a fleet could survive if they tried to hide behind a black hole, Celery quietly challenging his logic while secretly laughing at the audacity. Each quip, each subtle exchange, chipped away at the initial fear and hostility, revealing glimpses of understanding and recognition that neither could fully name yet. As the first chapter drew on, Marcus sensed that the stakes were shifting. Celery's careful examination was no longer purely professional. It carried an undercurrent of something personal, something buried beneath layers of protocol, duty, and decades of memory. He remembered a faint moment, a fleeting rescue, a brief gesture of trust that had passed unacknowledged at the time, but now shimmered between them like a hidden current. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the chamber, punctuated by the occasional, almost imperceptible pulse of her bioluminescent ears, Marcus realized that this was not just an interrogation. It was a reunion, though neither had yet dared to call it that. And for the first time, he dared to hope that survival might not depend solely on strategy or luck, but on recognition, humor, and the strange bond that connected them across species and time. Marcus had just begun to feel that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't going to be vaporized on the spot when Celery leaned back in her chair and crossed her long, slender fingers over her lap, the glowing tips tracing arcs like constellations. "Tell me more of your experiences on the frontier," she said, and the word experiences carried the weight of both command and curiosity. Marcus straightened, realizing that the conversation had shifted from interrogation to something else entirely, something less lethal and more like diplomacy with an audience of one. He cleared his throat. "Well," he began, "there was this time on Corin 4, where the local fauna were aggressive, sure, but the planet's atmosphere insisted on giving everyone mild hallucinations. I spent 3 days arguing with what I thought was a very opinionated shrub, and apparently it argued back." He raised an eyebrow. "Still holding grudges, I think." Celery's ears twitched, and the patterns on her neck rippled in amusement. "You have a talent for exaggeration," she said, her voice lighter than before, "or perhaps for surviving improbable situations." "Surviving improbable situations is my specialty," Marcus said with mock pride. "Well, that and making first contact with slightly homicidal wildlife. It's a delicate balance of patience, improvisation, and sarcasm." The Queen let a faint laugh escape, melodic but brief, before she snapped her attention back to the hollow panel in front of her. "And the humans you command, do they follow your humor-based strategy often?" Marcus shrugged. "Only when it's safer than panicking. And sometimes even then, yes. You'd be surprised how much laughter can make a plasma rifle less terrifying." Celery's lips curved again, and the pulse of her bioluminescence shifted, brighter and more erratic, like a heartbeat quickened by curiosity. "You are unlike most soldiers I have interrogated," she admitted, and Marcus took it as a compliment of sorts. They drifted into conversation about the frontiers, and Marcus found himself gently teasing Celery about her long ears. "They must get caught on door frames sometimes, right?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Her ears twitched, and she gave him a look that could have been warning or delight. "Only when humans make jokes about them," she said dryly, and Marcus laughed, a little too loudly, because the chamber felt suddenly less threatening. "Fair enough. I'll keep the commentary to a minimum unless they start twitching again." A small drone zipped across the room, clanking against the walls with an ungraceful hum. Marcus gestured at it. "Ah, my audience for this stand-up routine. Don't worry, it's polite and doesn't ask for tips." Celery's eyes flicked to the drone, and her glowing patterns shimmered briefly like a signal. "You speak of humor as a tactic," she said, "but I sense something more, something inherent to your being." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You mean stubbornness, or perhaps my uncanny ability to survive alien interrogations. He grinned, though he felt a pulse of seriousness beneath his levity. Either way, it's part of my charm. Celeri studied him for a long moment, her gaze sharpening and softening all at once. It is familiar, she said finally, and Marcus froze. Familiar? That was a word that carried weight across galaxies, through wars and alliances, and he wondered if she had pieced together the fragment of memory he hadn't even consciously remembered. You know, he said cautiously, I think I've met someone very much like you before. Or maybe it was a hologram, or a very convincing dream, or a shrub arguing back on Corin 4. It's hard to tell sometimes. Celeri's shoulders relaxed slightly, almost imperceptibly. Perhaps you have, she said. Perhaps you did something years ago, unknowingly, that mattered. Marcus felt a strange tightness in his chest. That mattered, it carried resonance. The kind that only came from moments that reshaped destinies, not just planets. He forced a joke to cover his sudden awareness of significance. Well, if I helped reshape destinies, I hope it wasn't too messy. I left cleanup crews on Corin 4. Celeri's ears twitched again, faint patterns rippling across her neck. Messy, perhaps, but effective, that is often enough. The chamber grew quieter, save for the soft hum of the ship and the occasional beep of the hollow panel. Marcus realized that the interrogator in front of him was less a judge and more a companion in memory, threading the past with the present in a way that neither could fully articulate. Your survival skills, Celeri continued, are unusual. Not merely for a human soldier, but for someone I have observed before. Someone whose decisions, small and unseen, altered outcomes that even I did not anticipate. Marcus froze again, realizing that the past he had thought forgotten had been quietly catalogued in someone else's mind. I don't know what to say to that. Your welcome seems insufficient. He grinned. Though I suppose, sorry about all the accidental chaos, might be appropriate too. Celeri's gaze softened in a way that made the pulsing glow of her ears seem warmer. You do not speak as a soldier only, Lieutenant Vale. You speak as someone human, someone capable of humor, error, and kindness. Marcus felt a small smile tug at the corner of his mouth. You know, I thought all alien queens were intimidating and serious all the time. This is pleasantly disorienting. Celeri inclined her head slightly, her glow dimming and brightening rhythmically. Impression management is less important than understanding, Lieutenant. Some truths reveal themselves through laughter, not fear. Marcus leaned back, exhaling. The shift in tone was subtle but undeniable. Humor had softened the edge of fear, and in its place, something unspoken began to bloom, a connection that transcended rank, species, and the immediate threat of annihilation. He recalled the brief mission long ago, the rescue he had performed without knowing whose life hung in balance, and a shiver ran through him. Recognition, perhaps, though still unconfirmed. They talked for hours, drifting between frontiers, near disasters, improbable encounters, and humorous speculation about what might happen if humans tried to race Andrali's ships through a nebula. Marcus told tales of surviving hostile wildlife with improvised tactics. Celeri countered with observations about Andrali's law, bizarre diplomatic customs, and the occasional personal anecdote about her life as a queen who had learned to laugh despite the weight of responsibility. By the time the conversation drew to a pause, Marcus realized that the initial tension, the fear of immediate death, the sharp edge of interrogation, had faded almost entirely. The queen's curiosity had replaced hostility, and the bond between them, though unspoken, began to take form. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to consider that survival was not just a matter of skill or luck. It might also depend on memory, recognition, and the fragile, astonishing humor that bridged human and Andralis alike. Marcus felt the weight of the chamber shift, though nothing had moved. Celeri's gaze, steady and deliberate, held him in a strange liminal space between past and present, memory and choice. The bioluminescent patterns along her ears flickered rhythmically, as though matching the cadence of his own pulse, and he realized that all the banter, all the jokes, had brought them here, to a moment neither of them could avoid. I remember now, she said softly, voice like liquid starlight. It was on Leora 3, a convoy under attack. You acted without knowing who you saved, without hesitation. You did not see the rank, the title, the species. Only the life in peril. Marcus froze, the memory uncoiling in his mind like a slowly unfurling nebula. He had been a young lieutenant, fresh from training, and reckless in a way only youth and inexperience could allow. He had seen a figure in disguise, trapped beneath fallen debris, and he had acted. The mission had gone on, orders had been followed, and the world had moved on, leaving the single act buried beneath strategy and statistics. I didn't know it was you, he admitted, a wry smile tugging at his lips. I thought it was just anyone who needed help. Honestly, I didn't even have time to think about the species. Salari's ears twitched, faint pulses racing along her neck. And yet, that choice shaped events far beyond your understanding. That choice shaped me. Marcus swallowed, realizing that the interrogation, the fear, the jokes, all had been scaffolding leading to this revelation. He wanted to say something clever, to lighten the tension that throbbed in the metallic chamber, but words failed him. Instead, he gestured vaguely. Well, glad to know my random acts of heroism pay off eventually. Though I still hope the payment doesn't include laser imprisonment. Salari allowed herself a quiet laugh, one that shimmered in the chamber like sunlight through a prism. No imprisonment, not for you. She paused, her gaze softening as though weighing the centuries of protocol against this single, unpredictable human. I forgive you, Marcus Vale, not because you deserve it by law or custom, but because the bond between us demands it. Marcus blinked, the word forgive hitting him with a weight that was both thrilling and terrifying. Thank you, Your Majesty. I mean, that's very generous, and also slightly terrifying in a good way. Her smile was subtle but unmistakable. Generosity is less remarkable than recognition, Lieutenant. I recognized you the moment you spoke with your humor intact, the moment you made mistakes but never hesitated to act. Recognition requires neither rank nor title, only presence and perhaps trust. The surrounding council, who had been observing silently from shadowed platforms, stirred. Whispers echoed in alien tones, debates about protocol and honor flaring briefly. Marcus, aware of the eyes upon him, forced a quip. Don't worry, I promise I'm not dangerous, unless someone brings up accounting. Then all bets are off. Salari's laughter softened the council's outrage into reluctant amusement. He is unique, she admitted, and that uniqueness is precisely why he lives. Marcus allowed himself to relax. The weight of the past few days, the capture, the fear, the uncertainty, lifted, replaced by a cautious exhilaration. The humor that had sustained him, the ability to joke even in the face of annihilation, had not only preserved his life but had revealed the hidden thread that bound him to Salari, across species and memory. Do you forgive humans in general? He asked cautiously, still wary of her position. She tilted her head, ears tracing elegant curves against the chamber lights. Some humans, yes, but I forgive you because you acted from instinct, from something beyond protocol. And that is rare, that is valuable. Marcus nodded slowly, considering the implications. For the first time, he understood that his journey had changed him. He had survived countless skirmishes, faced horrors in distant galaxies, but the true transformation had come here, in the quiet moments between interrogation and humor, recognition and memory. He had learned that courage was not merely the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it, guided by instinct, empathy, and perhaps a well-timed joke. Salari rose from her platform, her long ears casting delicate shadows across the chamber. She extended a hand, glowing softly at the tips. Marcus stepped forward, aware of the significance of the gesture. Their hands met, human and Andrali's, and a subtle current passed between them, electric and resonant, as though the universe itself acknowledged the bond. You are free to return to your ship, Salari said. But know this, your actions have consequences that extend beyond your comprehension. The galaxy is a web of choices, Lieutenant Vale, and your thread runs through it with influence and promise. Marcus allowed himself a smile, genuine and unguarded. I'll try to live up to that, promise, though I can't guarantee I'll avoid accidental comedy along the way. Salari's eyes sparkled with amusement. That, too, is part of your charm. As he turned to leave the chamber, Marcus felt a sense of closure he had not expected. The fear that had shadowed him, the anxiety of uncertainty, and the weight of unacknowledged deeds had transformed into understanding, recognition, and an unexpected bond that transcended worlds. He had faced judgment, yet discovered forgiveness. He had been a soldier, but now also a bridge between species, between past and present, between protocol and intuition. Outside the chamber, the Andrali's council watched silently, still processing the unprecedented decision. Marcus, hands clasped behind his back, walked toward the exit with measured steps, humor still at the ready, yet tempered by reflection. The galaxy awaited, full of perils, wonders, and improbable encounters. He had survived